Welcome to the Integration Station. I'm Naturally Ashley, your host, here to guide you down the rabbit hole into the world of psychoactive plants, frogs, and fungi. Good morning, and welcome back to the Integration Station. I'm Naturally Ashley, your host, here with a special guest, a lady that I truly adore, Lily. And Lily's business is called the Lion's Gypsy Plant Medicine. She goes to school for medicine at Everglades University currently, however, did serve in Special Operations Air Force. She's certified in sound modalities, and you can reach her on any social media. I'll make sure all the links are below for you. In this episode, we're going to talk about mushrooms and tricks to help when you're working with mushrooms, especially and specifically around microdosing. But she has so much to share with us, and honestly, I'm really excited to just get started. So without further ado, let's get this show on the road.
You're listening to the Pace Radio Network here at paceradio.net.
The views expressed by the individuals during this broadcast are their own opinions, and they may not be the same as those of their group or other organizations they may be involved with.
Okay. Hello, you beautiful souls, and welcome back to the Integration Station. I'm Naturally Ashley, your host, and I've got a wonderful guest with us today, Lily from Lion's Gypsy Plant Medicine. She's here to share so many amazing things. We were just talking before the episode. I had a whole bunch of topics to talk about, and then we were just talking about a couple more. So this is going to be a great full episode for you guys. Stay tuned. And yeah, without further ado, I'm just going to pass it over to you, Lily, so you can share an introduction, what led you to this journey, what you're doing now, all of it.
Thank you so much. I love your enthusiasm. It's so contagious. It's riveting, really. So hi, yes, my name is Lily, and I'm located right now in St. Louis. Where my beginning began was about 24 years ago. I was in special operations in the Air Force. And during that time, I was serving over in Kuwait. It was around 9/11. And while I was there, I ran into someone who was a Navy SEAL, and he had started teaching me some health information about Ayurvedic medicine. Right before I deployed, I had found out that my youngest daughter, she was a newborn baby at the time, had been diagnosed with 4 different autoimmune diseases. And then I left for Kuwait. While I was over there and he started introducing me, I hadn't ever even tapped into natural medicine at all at that time. From that time moving forward, fast forward 16 years, and even though I was practicing natural medicine as well as traditional medicine, we couldn't get over that hump. She had a different type of eczema that was staph infection related, so she always had staph infections and cellulitis. She also had asthma and Sjogren's disease. So with these diseases, they all affect the nervous system. Well, after I got out of the military, I ended up becoming a chef, and I went into vegan cooking and learned how to ferment foods and learned how to sprout and cook high vibrational foods ultimately. From that point, my daughter Sequoia at that time, 16 years, she had become bedridden during this time that I was a chef and learning ferments. The family that I was working for, I was working as a personal chef, had a friend come over that had handed me a gift. And when I peeked at the gift, it was a kombucha culture, which is another form of a fungus. Kombucha cultures are a little bit different in how they grow, but the idea is still the same as far as the nervous system goes. 3 days into giving Sequoia kombucha, she started to heal. And 3 months into it, she was about 80% healed. And then I opened up a kombucha brewery here in St. Louis. Once COVID hit, we had too much demand. My bottles were from Italy, and I shut down. That then put me into a different category of what was I going to do. And I decided to go back to school, and I go to Everglades University in Florida now. I wanted to study Everglades plant medicine and ended up picking that school because of that. So once I started going into plant medicine, I started taking certification courses in sound, and I bought gongs, and then I got into Nikola Tesla, and now I'm hardcore into physics and quantum physics. But I particularly like frequency harmonics, and I do love Nikola Tesla. So with the mushrooms, I actually will do experiments with electricity. Mushrooms really like plasma and being electrocuted, if you can believe it. So, but back to the mushroom process, once I decided to go back to school, I came across psychedelics, and I had my own experience. And I had an experience in a way that once I hit some DMT in my brain, and it was all over for me. In a way, it almost sort of feels like I became an initiate, but not in that way. What I mean by that is I dropped everything. Once I had that experience, I ended up getting a divorce. My eyes were open, the veil was dropped, and I saw things that I had never seen before. Science became very, very simple for me in the sense of I had a learning disability before that I could barely get through high school. I'm carrying almost a 3.8 average right now in medicine, but it's not because of my doing. When I had the DMT experience, that's honey that flows from your pineal gland and goes into your body, and it has the potential of free energy healing that can heal your whole body, which is what happened to me. It lit up parts of my brain that had never been lit up before. And on top of that, I was able to articulate, and my body was healed. I had precancer in my throat, a lot of different things from thyroid issues. After I had my DMT experience, I woke up and I felt this incredible feeling of love, to the point where I thought that I had a brain tumor or something. Like, I'm so analytical sometimes. I went and got checked and I was fine, but what it was really was that mushrooms and DMT incorporated photon light in my body that I had never experienced. I was hidden in darkness. So when then I was exposed to light, it was like I was all in. I joke with people, but not in a blasphemous way that I'm like John the Baptist now, except I don't have camel wrapped around my privates. I do other things instead. And a little bit too much, but really I'll stand on the bridges right now if I have to, if that means to teach people the way of healing, and that's what I do now. The Lion's Gypsy is basically a freak show. I do go a lot more unorthodox. A lot of people do shrooms a particular way and how they teach and everything, but there's protocols. So I study Native American, shamanic, Ayurvedic, Chinese. I'm tapped into a lot of different areas. I study phonetics, as well as heavily in frequency and proton and the atomic aspect of it with the nervous system. Those are the areas that don't always get talked about because they're sometimes difficult. So I've tried to come up with a way to be able to teach children as well as adults. So my emphasis is teaching the nervous system, but really how to cope. And then you can incorporate mushrooms in that way, psychedelics in those ways. But if you can start with the kids, at least to just open the door, then you can open the door for other avenues and other areas. So currently I go into Christian schools and I teach quantum and I teach plant medicine. They might not all know about it, but I do it. Now, I don't know if you want that in there or not, but the bottom line is a lot of this information is hidden because of the agenda by the government. And because I was in special ops, I'm not far from special ops still. Once you're government property, you're government property. So I'm still studying all the stuff that's hidden, all the things that are coming to surface. I study astrophysics on a very intense level. I volunteer with Mars studies and cloud counting and stuff like that. So I'm in it in a lot of different ways. As far as what I do, I like educating, but I also grow the gardens in preparation of what's to come. What if people need a value system? What if people can afford this or that? Like groceries right now, $100 buys you like 3 items.
Yes.
If you grow your own shrooms in these little gardens from Boomer Schumer, have at it. I'll grow it for you. Just pick up the garden. All they have to do is name it after a star. So that way we have our own constellation being lit up. And then besides that, I work with distillation also. I'm in the process distilling my own line of shrooms. But also, it's not like to say the proprietary blend to sound cool, but it's not. I'm going to take foods that make you glow, like resveratrol and blue-green algae and different things. And we're going to make a combination bottle for a glow factor, but then also another combination bottle for like iron. Before you take shrooms, you should take iron. Iron increases oxygen. Oxygen increases your blood flow in your veins. And then the bigger your veins are, the more squeezins is going to hug on your pineal gland and more DMT that will flow. And then healing can happen. But once that distillate is started, I'll have iron, vitamin C. Vitamin C is full spectrum rainbow. If you look at it under a microscope, it is just a huge spectrum. When you incorporate all these different things and good plasmas, once you purge that trauma, which is what shrooms do, is it cleans your water system out. If you have good plasma like slippery elm, licorice root, marshmallow root, those good plasmas help to purge that out quicker so that you can heal faster, especially for depression and anxiety. So that's really my heartbeat.
It's such a beautiful way to put it. You shared so much already. Oh my gosh.
I know. I'm like, well, kind of a loaded question. How do I answer this? But in a nutshell, what was that? 10 minutes?
Yeah. Oh my gosh. Yeah. It's beautiful, and we can dive into like every single one of these things. I'd first like to just start from the beginning. Like, you started out in special operations.
Yeah.
How did you make that shift? Like, it was through your daughter's health, but like still you had to get your own mind around these new concepts. What was that like in that time?
Yeah. So because I had a learning disability, I had my daughter when I was young. I was 22, and I had her out of wedlock, and I was going to school at the time in Michigan. But I never knew what I wanted to go into, because as you can see, I'm interested in everything. If you want to teach me welding, I'm all in. I'm one of those. I'm very thirsty. But when I had that learning disability, I have ADD, which is a gift, but at the time it wasn't. It was actually very difficult, because then on top of it, I couldn't learn or articulate or form sentences, even though they were in my mind. So I ended up going into the military by just happenstance that I was really good at process of elimination with the ASVAB test, which is a test that you have to take to get in. Once I was in basic training, I still didn't know what I wanted to go into. And they showed this movie like you see, and it was these guys doing all these cool things, jumping out of planes and all this stuff. I'm like, they're like, who wants to join? I was the only one that raised my hand. And I trained and physically, and I passed. I'm 5'2". A lot of people think I'm like taller, but I'm this big. And so you have to I had to lift weight that was half my size, but I wanted it bad enough that I got in. And so I actually ended up, and I'm glad that you asked that question, because that's actually where it started for me. I trained and I did well. I was a marksman shooter, so I knew how to handle myself well, and they put me in fast. And so I was the only woman trained, and I don't know if that's still the case now, the only female that would represent in front of Congress for night vision goggles. Now, night vision goggles are green light, kind of like this. So this is actually what night vision is made of, is phosphorus. This is exactly it. I just happen to have that sitting by me. I was morning. So, but when you work with green light and phosphorus, then you can start understanding theology, because phosphorus in Greek is Lucifer. Ooh, you start tapping on that subject, but I did. And then you start going on Lucifer's mom and Lucifer's dad. Now, the reason why I say that is because that's where the agenda started. That's where all the hidden information became to be, because you see, light means Lucifer, but it also means phosphorus, and phosphorus is everything that is beneficial for glowing on the inside. Psilocybin has psilocybin chemical in it that communicates with our bodies. So it's called a Luciferian effect. When you have that happen on the inside, it's like fireflies dancing on the inside of your body. So when I was in the military, I learned firsthand everything about phosphorus. And so learning night vision goggles, my category and my strength was that I was called the owl. So I worked with night vision, glow in the dark stuff in everything I did. Well, I'm also the one on a Friday night that has my purple light out, and I'm looking for everything that glows. So it's kind of funny how the law of correspondence sort of follows you all throughout life. All these little synchronicities that are right in front of you that you just don't see, you know? And now I do, and I'm all in. I'm like, it only took me closing the kombucha brewery to figure out that mushrooms were like dancing in front of my face this whole time. So yes, after I joined the military, I was actually in during 9/11. And so that was an interesting time. After that happened, I blew out my knee actually when I was in Kuwait, and I couldn't jump or, from the planes. And so I decided to get out. And that's when I went into cooking, and I was going to become a chef, but realized real quickly that I loved it as a passion, but not as a job. And it happened to be that a family heard that I was a good cook and took me in, and they happened to be a family that had money that they let me just do whatever. And so I did, and I figured out my own eating methods, and then that's where the high frequency foods came in. That's where I started with sound therapy and different doctors that they do different things for coding, because coding is everything. So crystals and mushrooms and the nervous system, your DNA are just sets of crystals. So you just think of our bodies like astronaut suits. We're just tethered here to just absorb the experience of being on Earth. But in actuality, once we die, our photons go out of our body, 6 grams of them actually, and they become phantom DNA. And they linger and they wait and they hover for another person to come by so that they can jump on like little parasites. That's why if somebody passes away and you're holding on to them, there is an energy transference.
Yeah, especially if you're close to that person too, right? Like people like Edison, the reason why like a lot of this scientific stuff moves on to their inner circle is because those photons are looking for somebody specific, and oftentimes they'll go to that inner circle. So like we can still feel, like my dad who passed away, it's like I feel him in there guiding me, and other people can say that about different ancestors. There is scientific backing. I'm so grateful that you're bringing this up.
Yes, and you know what, on that note, that's so freaking cool that I gotta tell you. So I do get weird, and this is still relevant, but I'm a loner, okay, in the sense because it's hard to hang and try to describe myself to people. It's just better that I hang out with the ether, and then eventually I'll come out. But so one night it was like 2:00 in the morning. I get a lot of downloads at 10, and I don't know why. There must be something. I'm starting to figure that out. The ether, and we're different people at night. That's why you have your moon rising or your sun and your moon, and because you're different people. And so I had this frequency machine. I was actually looking for entities because I know we're transitioning to fourth dimension. But I just happened to turn on my frequency harmonic machine that I had hooked up to my cactus, which I can show you in a minute. And I had my phone just arbitrarily aimed at the corner, and I study platonic solids, which there's 5 platonic solids that make up everything in the earth. Okay, I'll just leave it at that, which means there's 5 specific shapes that create puzzles and codes and ingredients to everything. Triangles are the most amazing because electrical conduity goes through it the quickest. It's like direct. Well, I happen to have my phone aimed at the corner of a room. Now, if you look at the corner of a room, it's an inverted triangle. So the point is pointing inward at the room, but then the base of it is like a square. So if you have 4 of them in a room and you sit in the middle, all of those 4 points are going to go into center of the room. Am I saying that okay so far? Okay, so I took this frequency machine, it's infrared lighting, and I had it pointed at the corner. I turned my machine on, and I saw the birthing of sound. Like I have it all recorded. It was like a freaking fluke. I saw a little white speck because it says that sound starts as a black hole. And when I caught it, I saw the speck and I was like, oh my gosh, is that conception happening right now? I mean, that's how freaking twisted it was. I started crying. I knew it was. I started seeing it pulsate more and more, and it became monochrome, and that's what sound does. So it turns black as it's pulsating. It pulsates a band of white. Then the white pulsates a band of black. Then it starts stretching out into a heart form, and I'm tripping out. I'm watching all this, recording it, and then I see just this giant black triangle. It looks like a black tent. In the middle is just this little red, like, fire. Well, in between, I got the ether converting the conception of sound. It turned right before it turned into those triangles in the fire, the triangle in the fire. It showed the ether coding the sound waves into a color. I have that all recorded. That triangle in the fire, now we're going to jump to Hebrew phonetics because it's like one of the most powerful. They say that Hebrew letters were formed by somebody standing in a triangle, a tent, with a fire in the middle. And back then it was 5D or 6D, and they were moving your hands like this, like flow dancing. Movement is everything. We're creating energy by our flow. So this guy or girl or it, whatever, was in this tent moving its hands by the fire, and the shadows that were going up on the wall and the frequency that was being emitted by those movements is what gave Aleph, A, or Tev, which is the last letter of the Hebrew alphabet, its frequency. So in the Hebrew phonetics, from B on, A doesn't count. That's God's letter. So they don't really use that. But B on, it counts, but it doesn't really in the numeric form value system. But B on, and then once you go later on, like X, the numeric value in those letters is everything. That's according to how much energy that hand hit in those movements. So in the Jewish and Hebrew language, they don't really use those letters unless they want that power punch. So X's, when they're using an X, that's because they're using like a power word, like lemon is a power food. Those phonetics and that consonant or whatever, you want, it's different with the English language, and of course, but that's where they created their Hebrew language, and I got to witness it on a wall. Now, when you look at that, and a song from a plant is playing that, which was 432 frequency, which is a healing frequency, and you look at Giza, and you look at center point, when you're feeling your dad or your mom or the relative you were talking about, and you sit center in a room, you're just being activated, just like the sarcophagus in Giza, just by playing one of those plants. You play a mushroom, and lion's mane even. I played lion's mane. It was so lovely. But they all have their own song. So then you can even take it a step further, do psilocybin. You code that song with the frequency harmonic box next to water. Water will code that song, and guess what? Drink it up.
Amazing.
Isn't that cool?
Yeah. Can you show us how it works? I know you've got it.
Yes, I'll turn my phone around. I don't have live mushrooms with me at the moment like I did last week, but this is the plant that I'm going to show you. And what I'll do is I'm going to connect it real fast. It'll only just take a second. I have these pieces. This is how big it is. And I have actually 2 different frequency harmonic plants. This is actually discovered, like this machine itself is not discovered by Pythagoras, but frequency harmonics as an overall is discovered by Pythagoras. He was walking around his area. I forgot where he was from exactly, but the city, but he was walking and he was hearing metalsmith being clanked, and he could hear all the different hammers and the metals hitting harmonics, and that's how he discovered the fifths and everything that is in music theory. And then music of the planets, which planets oscillate, so they vibrate like that, which means they make their own sound and their own harmony. So then when you bring planets into harmony like that, then it creates a symphony. So that's what we all are. We're all a symphony. So if we're making You can record your voice with apps now to see how much photon light is in your voice, to see if what you're saying is life or death. So say you do, you are beautiful, or love, or just say the word beautiful and you say it 3 times, beautiful, beautiful, beautiful. You will see a band go like this, like a DNA. Those are high frequency words. If you say hate or stupid, they don't band like that. They just drop like lightning, and they go actually downward instead of upward. That's how the energy travels.
That's so interesting. I really love a lot of the work by Napoleon Hill, and one of the things that he said about in Outwitting the Devil was that the devil is the struck of lightning, where it actually explodes. That's one of the forms that he takes, so that like downward, using those negative words, because essentially what he was saying was that the negativity of an atom is what the devil is. The devil is not like somebody with horns and this entity, that it's actually religion itself that instills this fear, and the schools that instill this fear that are working on the devil's side, because fear is that negative part of the atom, but that the positivity that comes from plants, because the devil doesn't want to have any interest really in plants, stars, and all that. So when we're working and aligning more with nature, we're actually aligning with that Christ consciousness, which is coming through in communication. It may very well be this language of harmonics. So it's really interesting. I'm going to, oh, sorry, Andrea, but we're coming up to commercial here. So I would love to just break quick, and then we'll come back and you can show us this machine and what you've set up. Is that okay?
Absolutely. This is wonderful. Thank you.
Okay. Yeah, thank you too. Okay, we'll be right back.
Okay, sounds good.
You're listening to the Pace Radio Network here at paceradio.net.
Growing your own cannabis is easier than you think. Whether you're growing for recreational or medical purposes, BMA Hydroponics has everything you need to succeed. From the standard 4-plant recreational systems to the latest cutting-edge hydroponic equipment, BMA can customize your package and do it at discount prices. Visit BMA Hydroponics at 404 Maitland Drive in Belleville and ask us for a free estimate. Or call 613-967-9888 and we will give you an estimate over the phone. The only way to go.
In February of 2022, the Victoria Cannabis Buyers Club and Ted Smith were fined $6.5 million. This for helping 8,500 patients with access to medical cannabis. In our interview with Ted, he spoke to us about how people can donate to help in an upcoming court challenge. And here is part of that interview. From what I've seen lately, I believe that you've got something that you're trying to do as far as fundraising to deal with this next court challenge.
For now, people can write checks directly to Jack Lloyd Law Corporation or send e-transfers to savethebcbc@gmail.com. I guess those are the 2 easiest ways for people to help right now.
What do you find at paceradio.net? People advocating cannabis education.
Did you know that the Pace Radio Network isn't just a radio network? That's right, because most, but not all of our programming is now done via video and is then podcasted at paceradio.net. So if you want to watch our programming, you'll find us on the Pace Radio Network's Facebook page, plus the show's own page, and you'll find us live on the network's YouTube channel. And don't forget, you can find it all, video and audio, at paceradio.net.
Cannabis edibles are an effective way to manage pain and other ailments, especially when you deal with your trusted partner, Legacy 420, in Tyendinaga Mohawk territory. You see, we lab test every product on site to ensure proper dosage every time, which is critical when consuming cannabis edibles. All Legacy 420 edibles are made by our classically trained baker and chocolatier, and we also have super tasty vegan options.
Our baker has been in the industry for 25 years. She's also a chocolatier. Everything from savory to sweet, your chocolate bars, brownies, butter tarts, you name it, we make it.
Talk to our knowledgeable Cannatex about our incredible variety available. Give your trusted partners a call. Legacy 420 out on your road.
You're listening to the Pace Radio Network here at paceradio.net.
Welcome back, you beautiful souls, and welcome back, Lily. Thank you. I know we were going to get into some of the actual visual effects and I guess guidance on how to use these harmonic machines, but we're going to do that actually after the next break. Just because there are two different machines and one of them's not working because we're using the phone for this video. So stay tuned, it will come. And it's nice to know too that there are different machines, different types of technology. They're really optimizing on this. It's nice to see more of the science and the spirit coming together in this way, and that is becoming more of a priority for a lot of people today.
It really is. It's funny that you say that. It's like science and spirit are joining for the first time, and to have that kind of harmony is a song in itself. So it's very cool. Sometimes I get ripped on a lot because I teach so much of the science, but, people are always like, well, why do you, just let it come from the heart? And I'm like, but this is my heart. The science is, because I remember when I was first coming into quantum physics and I would hear people talk about retrograde and stuff like that. And I didn't know anything. I had known general physics, things like Fibonacci, but not that kind of stuff. And so I couldn't really follow. And I feel it's very important with the ascension and the awakening that's happening right now. Our bodies are evolving, and, we're in a harbinger effect of something that hasn't happened in 25,000 years. That's actually happening in our lifetime. And so many people are unaware of how alive the plants are. So even when we were talking about the photon light and everything, the photons are evolving. If we don't evolve, the solar flares that are hitting us right now, like in the month of October, we got hit by so many solar flares. There were 40 satellites that dropped, but nobody knows about that kind of stuff. Nobody even really knows that the solar flares are happening because they're so focused on other hyper concentrated vocabulary words like retrograde. So that can also be a suppression of information as well, because then that people are like, oh, okay, well, retrograde, that just sounds cool, but nobody really knows what it is. Kind of like Bitcoin. How do you follow? Well, exactly, that's what they want. It's all to confuse. Didn't Canada, wasn't it 3 years ago, you guys had about 9 days shutdown of electricity or something like that, or the internet? It was something I read about because
for a while, even one of the big cell phone companies went down during the lockdowns, and that stopped a lot of even 911 calls. A whole bunch of stuff went down. We've had a few different experiences like that in the past too. We had one when I was a child that was a week or two of a full blackout. So it happens around here. It's more of a sign, just get back in natural flow. That's the way I take it. It's like going camping, it's a sign.
Sensitized,
yeah.
Is what were you going to say?
Oh, I didn't hear you for a second. I thought maybe you were muted, but you're back.
Yeah. So during that time in Canada, I don't know what your news was showing, but they didn't show it here. But during that time, we got hit by solar flares, the whole world. See, you guys are more north. So the people that are closest to north, the people that are closest to south, you guys are going to have polar effects that are going to be a lot different. Your electromagnetic, fields. That's why you guys get the auroras, like you do. So during that time, we got hit by the gnarliest solar flares that they had ever recorded. And then satellites dropped. So I didn't know if you ever heard of that. But now,
I didn't get that information.
Yeah. So, but they're not going to. And so I got so involved in space is because, for instance, mushrooms and we're talking about the ascension, what the ascension ultimately is, for those that are hearing that haven't heard of it, is basically we're going from carbon to crystal. Well, if you look at other patterns in life, they're also doing that with batteries. They're going from carbon, graphene, graphite, which is in pencils, carbon, hexagram, hexagon, which means human, but it also means creation, and sperm. Gon means sperm and creation. So anytime you see those words, it's all a little, connect the dots effect. Well, so then when you take it to space, okay, I'm going to leave that there now. You take it to space, April 27th this past year, and this is why the coding is so important, is because everything is being coded right now. Graphene was being coded in those satellites. You see, the satellites can't go as far with graphene or carbon, just like we can't. And so we're just basically, and I don't know if I'm tapping into something too far, but we're basically just like, we're holograms, we're simulations, we're Minecraft. We're creating our own world. We're fractals. We're just experiencing things. Just like I said, we're tethered. That's why we have umbilical cords. That's why we're still tethered to the air. We're tethered to this body. And really, when you're talking about the devil, this is our prison. This is the devil, because this is our sin nature. The light is the God nature. And that's why the DNA and the Carduceus and all the Kundalini, the snake, that's the dance. It's the dance of good and evil, white and black, good and bad, That'll always be there until the end. So when they're changing batteries to become immortal by changing them to use crystals, our pineal gland is a crystal. It's a calcite crystal that creates rainbows. They're changing the batteries to crystals that change into rainbows, also called fiber optics. And our cable now is all being changed to fiber optics. So how do we get better for those that are needing to awake? Because it's going to become either the wheat and the tares, either the good AI or the not, the narcissist or the non-narcissist, the viruses or the non-viruses, or the good and the bad, because there's good and bad to everything. So if we can get the people that are walking among the face of the planet that aren't part of the Nephilim fallen race, then we can gather together the troops and become the collaborative that the earth needs to pick up the heartbeat, because it's dying. And we need to love. We've forgotten who we are, especially over on this side of the world. These arts, even fermenting, they were fermenting honey and corn. But then as they were genetically modifying everything, that honey or the corn especially changed. It's no longer the same, even the ferments.
Yeah, it was a grain and now it's advertised as a vegetable.
A lot of ubiquitous. It could be either. Why? Because it's been modified, like blue-eyed people. It's like if we could just look at it for what it is, we're constantly being reprogrammed. So the solar flares are whooping us right now. We're in tantric position, our eye of earth and our eye of sun, our eyeball to eyeball. Because the sun's recognizing that the earth, the atmosphere of the earth is weakening. And it's weakening because of our love. And so that's why they're talking about aliens now, extraterrestrial and celestial, for those that are spiritual and they can't hear that word, like my aunt. I believe in the fallen angels and the Nephilims. And I'm like, well, do they come from space or do they come from the ground? They come from space. Well, anything from space is extraterrestrial. Let's not get stupid about it. Let's just keep it real. It doesn't have to be so separate. Just hear past the agenda. And so, with some of those genetic modifications, they can link chromosome to your reptilian, but we're not talking about that either. So if we're all these different archetypes, shouldn't we find out what star we're from so we can tap into our own magical powers? The way to do that is through shrooms. You can do ayahuasca, all that stuff, but shrooms date back so far. And it's one thing that hasn't evolved. And that's one thing that increases photon light more than anything else on the face of the planet besides sperm. Go figure, right? Sperm creates life but mushrooms feed on death and darkness. Isn't that crazy?
I think it's a beautiful craziness, to be honest. It's when I was growing them, I definitely saw that effect of like the tethering, and I saw the stem of the mushroom itself like an umbilical cord to the collective conscious, and it was like pulling up like really that saying of like you start the seed metaphor of like you start in the darkness and you have to struggle to reach the light. I really saw that it was the guiding post, the mushroom itself, to like pull you out of that and into that new evolution.
Absolutely, but you're so right on when you talk about the darkness. I'm not trying to be sexual, but like it shouldn't be voodoo, because if you compare, when you're talking about going in the darkness, that's what sperm does. Sperm is so electrical, and it really is the thing. They even talk about that, like it's atomic when conception happens. It's atomic when the pineal gland gets tapped by something like mushrooms. It's like orgasmic in your brain, and you're never the same, and it's like a rebirthing. And so when it's going through the dark tunnel, it's going to that rebirthing. Once it actually hits that egg, it's hitting our egg inside, and just like the spores of a mushroom. You've seen those slow motion videos. I mean, it's just like yeah, but then you think of our brain is a mushroom. It looks just like, I forgot the exact name. I can't believe I can't remember the name, but the shape of this mushroom looks exactly like a brain. It's not lion's mane. It actually
Morale?
No, it's a flatter one, but it's shaped. I'll have to send it to you, but it even has a line.
Really? That's cool.
Real, but that's again the law of correspondence. You see things that look in similarity,
a signature,
shaped just like a mushroom because of that reason. And then it's connected to our vagus nerve, and mushrooms are nothing but the nervous system. So we are a mushroom, And I forgot that movie, and they would say that, I'm like, dude, these guys are freaks. Mushrooms, my ass. Sorry, but my butt. But really, we are. Once I got past the idea, and I started transitioning my thought processes, I was like, we are a mushroom. Like, how freaking unreal. But then again, we're all the elements of Earth. Of course we are. And all the water that runs through us runs through everything. We're recycled. We're just recycled blobs of avatars that are cruising around town, observing in our DNA. And once we die, our DNA, the good, will all be stretched out. They'll all be connected together. The light of the DNA, in every single DNA, when you do shrooms, one DNA, 14,000 photons come out to dance. Could you imagine all of your DNA, your dad, or when you had that transference, you said it was your father, right? Yeah, so that transference of your father, when you do shrooms, you knock on that door and he comes out to play. And I'm not saying that to be dumb, but isn't that really what we desire, is that nostalgic feeling of what it's like to be a child again, the glutathione, intensity of playing hide and go seek, and it's still fun. That's what we're all trying to get back to, is like the simplicity of the heartbeat and the heartbeat song. And that's what I feel like shrooms have that potential of doing. Like it's the key, in my opinion, anyway.
Yeah, honestly, I stayed up late actually watching Avatar last night. I do love James Cameron, but I don't often get into movies. I just put it on. I was reading a book. I'm wanted a little bit of background music, background sound. Next thing you know, I'm putting my book down, and I'm so enthralled with this, and it's I was just remembering my time in the Amazon rainforest. All this, there were so many synchronicities, and one of the things that is coming up for me now in this conversation, maybe why I stayed up watching this movie, was when they're tethering their tail to the tree of their ancestors. You know, it's like there was this memory bank that we all had access to. And I think that is one of the things that comes through, likely because of these photons that are being released from the psychedelic compounds.
Yeah. But there is something about it, you know, it's like back in the day, like a lot of things, by the way, I just want to say the Amazon has been in my heart for many, many years. And I want to applaud you, because I wanted to go in January and I couldn't because they were doing vaccines and stuff, and I didn't go, and that's why I ended up going to the Everglades. The fact that you got to go, I'm super stoked. I want to hug you so that you can lay on some of that energy that was there on my shoulders. That's really cool. I love that for you. But yeah, I got distracted talking about that. But let me actually go back to the tethering. So the most important thing, because of why I originally brought that up, that's very important that people need to know right now, outside of anything that I've said. Because the solar flares have hit, it's increasing more electromagnetic energy in the earth. That's why we're transitioning to 4D. That's what's allowing us to. We have to evolve. Otherwise, if we stayed stagnant, we wouldn't be able to absorb the energy that the sun brings. The sun can bring chaos. It can bring madness. And as we evolve, the shrooms help to purge trauma so that we can receive that energy well. Okay? That's why it's so important. But as it's happening, it's important to understand that the plants that are being hit by the solar energy now are much more powerful than what they were. We were like at the bottom of the barrel about 6 years ago, okay, of humanity. We didn't have the energy. The Schumann resonance was like horrible of the earth. And that's why the solar flares started hitting more. And I was talking about the tantric. Well, as those solar flares are hitting and we're in tantric position, it's like direct hits. And what I mean by that is it's injecting, in Mesopotamia, Babylon, it shows these depictions of the sun shooting out rays, but it looks like sperm, okay? What that actually is indicating are solar flares shooting out, but activating DNA mid-air in the ether. So spontaneous life activation. Now, that's super cool, but that's actually prophecy being fulfilled. And that's what those mean. So I learned a lot about that as well. But why that's important is because when you see a rocket like Artemis taking off, and Artemis actually means creation or the virgin. And I started to tell you, I have to backtrack on this part of it. I started to tell you on April 27th this year, they launched out to the moon 500 species of plants, 2,000 DNA of humans. The moon has tubular storage units that they're storing DNA in there. It's all over the place now. It's not even hidden. It had been hidden, but now it's everywhere. You can look it up. And so Artemis, that just launched, went to the moon to go get those DNA, and they're taking them to Mars. So this is always what I want to ask people, which is what I said, that when I walk away, this is all I want people to understand is, isn't it interesting that that's going to be a new Garden of Eden or Lilith, whichever you believe, but that we're actually dropping DNA like what happened on Earth, and we're going to be the new observers. And nobody's really talking about that. And nobody's really talking about the solar flares or what's happening in Canada, or the fact that the big solar flare that's supposed to come is supposed to drop all the satellites and nobody's going to have electricity. So that's why the shrooms are going to be so important, is because we're going to go back to Egypt and how they use bioluminescence. This is the end of this part of it, is the plants are so alive now that when you're eating a carrot, the energy that it's absorbing from the sun now, the molecular coating that's happening in the crystal from vitamin C, but also the water, is a double dynamic. But honey, oh my gosh, even the resin of marijuana. And and coating water with sounds and stuff. It's everything right now. So that's why doing psilocybin drops, doing it under your tongue, doing it with vitamin C, even if you're not getting it from me, but you're doing it on your own and you're incorporating these things, you're going to be able to ascend that much quicker then. Your body is going to be able to evolve that much faster. So I know I tap dance all over the place, but for some of these people listening, and I know ADD kicked in here and there, but I'm trying to flow the best I can with the amount of information. But, time is now, ultimately. Now is the time. And I just happen to be a little bit of a forerunner in the sense of the science part of it. But people need to know because the algorithms are stuck on Pete Davidson. The algorithms are stuck on NFL and who's playing football right now. If you're not looking at these algorithms, we're all in our own bubble. So, I market a certain way.
But separate when really we are all one, and there's a lot of distractions and a lot of ways that they're playing this game.
Yes, absolutely. And I did a study not too long ago, when I used to own the kombucha brewery. The study to capture somebody's attention was 30 seconds. That was only 3 years ago. It's only 1 second now.
Yeah. Thank you, Instagram and TikTok.
Yeah. But it says a lot about the evolution of what's to come.
Yeah.
AI, inevitably, they're already doing brain chips and stuff like that. Elon Musk has already, Neuralink, they've already transitioned that. TikTok is already making the skin grafts where they're making the muscles superhuman like a thing. And speaking about Avatar, the movie Divergent and the new Mad Max, man, I can't freaking shake them. And Lord of the Rings, because all of that stuff, everybody always talks about the Matrix. I'm like, yeah, Matrix, red, blue, totally got it. But once you get past the Matrix, then what other movies are out there? But you see Lord of the Rings, you do see unicorns in 4D. You do see the Loch Ness Monster. Some people were just able to see that because they were already tapped in. But you do see the celestial creatures. And if people believe that or not, all I know is that they're finding gigantic steps being excavated in Greek right now linking that maybe Zeus did exist and it's not just, a mythological creature, but there's actually something to it. See, what we can't see, we won't believe.
Yeah,
but
they found tombs too that contain Mary Magdalene and Jesus and their son and things like that as well that are coming to light. They're trying to prove that it is who they say it is. But yeah, there's when it comes to the myths and all of the stories, including the Catholic religion as one of them, it's like there is some truth here, again, in Napoleon Hill's work, he talked about there being something like 30,000 different gods, and we get to choose which one we want to believe in. But, my true belief is that God is found within ourselves and within the plants. And that's how come we're able to communicate and even channel, some of our ancestors, some of that other information from, even if it's not our own ancestors, information from ancient times and other people is through these plants. And, maybe the photons are going into the plant life too and the animal life too. Maybe it's not just us that are able to tap into this. I believe that plants and animals would be way more open to that information than a lot of humans. I think we block out a lot of things.
So much, it's just like if we can break that resistance off. Right? I through a lot of that. I still do, but I was stationed at Area 51. And when I was stationed there, I'm saying that for a reason, because for whatever reason, the whole alien thing has been brought up again. And it's not like I ever went in there, but I was stationed there because I was with special ops. But why? And so I look at some of these things and the frequency things and the mushrooms, and I'm hearing more about telepathy and remote viewing. And it's like, all I do is study physics, and I'll tell you, pendulums are dancing. When we start talking about electricity, we are electricity. We are batteries. So that's why the mushrooms are so amazing, is because it's something that's given to us untethered. It's like by choice, and it's allowing us to be able to be in class the right way and to learn properly, because it's allowing us to go into our heart and minds. So when that happens, then when you're talking about the photons and stuff, well, if water's coding everything and experience is actually captured in our heart and in our water system. So if you had something bad happen to you, it could even be, people sometimes think that trauma has to be something super bad. No, everybody's trauma is different, because we are our own we character, right? Or me character. So, my experience is different than yours. It's not, any better than the other. So if you can understand that we all have trauma, and then we can decode that trauma from our childhood, because the other countries are taught that. They're taught by sound and citerns, and they do sound therapy, or they'll do plant therapy in so many other countries. But ours, in other countries as well, but we're not really taught how to cope. Look at our suicide rates.
Yeah.
The veterans, 1 out of 3. I mean, that's absurd, but we're doped up on antidepressants and anti-anxiety that block when you do psilocybin as well. So it's like even a war then.
And a lot of it too, I just heard from I was doing a show yesterday, a collaboration with a cannabis company, and they were talking about a lot of the SSRIs and things like Prozac. One of the main top ingredients is fluoride to calcify the pineal gland. So why are they using, these aren't actual medications. These are,
it's freaking warfare.
It's warfare. Straight. And if you know anything about World War II or any of the other world wars, a lot of it is complete fractal of what's happening today. Was very oppressed, and that's, you can compare somebody's trauma to another person's trauma, but again, one of the things that we all have in common is the oppression.
Yeah, and the coding of the water. If we can get our water to get the Luciferian effect, and that word has been perverted by Christianity, by churches, because who cares? We'll eventually know. But when I'm looking at, okay, Lucifer means light, and it also means the brightest star in the sky, and his mother means the Milky Way, that birth stars that help us, and on and on and on and on. And I'm like, oh, is that an agenda too? Because now everybody's afraid to say that word, but in actuality, that's a helpful thing to know, because then it helps us open up ourselves even more to clear out with that light. So, if, with that being said, I just think that it's so important that truth is spoken. And, when we're talking about the water being coded, when the shrooms go through and they bring light, so many different religions talk about light and darkness, but the shrooms just go with the flashlight and light just goes away, and you go to the bathroom and then it's gone. And after 30 days, I've worked with people, I do chocolate bars and I grow and all kinds of stuff, but these chocolate bars, the reason why I like them so much for education is because it's a testosterone builder. So a lot of people have hormone imbalances from a lot of different reasons. Most of it, 100% of it, is our diet. So hormone imbalances happen. Well, chocolate comes and it works symbiotically very well with mushrooms. And so that's where I kind of emphasize sort of that love for, mushrooms in that way. But basically, however you incorporate mushrooms, it will flush all of that out, lift up your hormone into a balance on its own, because they're adaptogens, because cocoa is a plant. And then now you have the new solar flares, and then everything's dancing and harmonizing, and then you're lit up, you can purge out, and then you can receive. But then also keeping in mind to be grateful for the water that the plants did have in their bodies at one time long ago. So we are recycled, like we were saying, so we're from soil. So we're going to identify with the things that are from our creator, which are our ingredients, which is the soil. mushrooms, plants, trees, when you're talking about the trees in nature. My daughter's name is named after the pine tree, sequoia. And so, but you look at that and it's very symbolic. Pine, represents the pineal gland. The fluoride is attracted. And you're right, during World War II, Russia and Nazis during that time came up with different things to trick radio waves. And then, they were able to figure out the 440 frequency, and then we changed our music. And people still don't know that. People don't know that we've been listening to chaos through Adolf Hitler, and that the swastika is actually Hindu, and it actually means something really great. But that's also another hidden agenda. But those symbols are becoming as well. They're becoming symbols. There's 32 primary symbols. Those are becoming alive too. Everything is changing right now. It's all evolving to become that those things are dancing. So, I make pyramids now, trying to teach people about the toroidal field on the inside, because when you're growing mushrooms, this is a prep thing, but if you put a triangle over it, it just brings all the extra energy down. So when you're growing shrooms, you have a triangle hanging over it. It's just that much more energy that those shrooms are absorbing that you're taking in, and you're creating more photon light. Men especially need more photon light, especially in America, because porn has been an agenda. And every time men release, and I don't mean to be, I don't know if this is uncomfortable, but every time men release, it actually releases their life energy. It releases their that photon light isn't replenished for men like it is for women. And so that's why it says in the Bible not to drop seed on the ground. It's not just for that reason. That's actually in a lot of religions, it's because they lose their life. Well, shrooms bring that back. So that's part of the secret code for men, is they can start feeling alive again and not feeling oppressed and not feeling, man, they're getting a wrath too in a different way women are. Everybody.
Yeah, there's a testosterone epidemic going around here, a pandemic, but pine is a really good one for male testosterone. You make some really good points about the porn agenda. It's one that I personally like to share and talk on to, so I'm glad that you brought that up.
Yeah, I mean, it suppresses, it does, it's entrainment, and people, man, I'm just no, you don't understand. I mean, you're being duped. Everything is freaking warfare right now. I almost feel paranoid at times because I don't trust anything. I mean, so much was revealed during that DMT experience. When I saw my former husband and I saw the black silhouette around his body, that's what happened. See, my DMT experience was accidental. I couldn't sleep. I had sleep paralysis. I was seeing all these demons. All these different things were happening that would be in between sleep and awake. And then when I had overdosed on melatonin, I had taken 100 milligrams. I had microdosed marijuana, a little bit of shrooms, and kratom. It was like a freaking kamikaze. And I woke up and I didn't know what had happened, but I saw the outline of my former husband's body, realizing now he was an agenda, because that's what narcissists are. See, they attract just like the fluoride. The fluoride attracts to the pineal gland to shrink it. And now it's in our water. It's coated the water, and it's in all of our toothpaste, and the dentists are pushing it. All the while, it's lie after lie after lie after lie, but yet we're still taking the bait, and nobody's talking about it. So it's a tricky dynamic. But you're so right on that, because it's attraction. Narcissists are attracted to our frequency, and they're set up on purpose to try to take our light away. So that's why the ones that are ascending, my goal and hope is to try to save the lost. Really, it is. I don't know how else to say it.
Yeah, I really want to give you props here too, because you keep saying nobody's talking about it, but here's the thing, Lily, you're talking about it, and I think that is so important. I really want to just give reverence to that and celebrate that for a minute. It's another thing that really comes up here that you've repeated over and over again is that when you were younger, you know, you had these things like ADD, like learning disabilities, all of these things, but you found a way to turn those disabilities or handicaps into assets in your life. And this is why I really wanted to have you here. You're such an inspiration, really, you know, the courage to talk about these things, to figure them out, to understand them for yourself, to be able to simplify it in a way that other people can understand it. You know, I think everybody's going to take away from this episode as a new understanding and curiosity about this world. And it's because of the way that you're able to take these complexities of life and put them into simple terms. And that in itself is a fractal of how you turned a handicap into an asset, was that process of doing it yourself.
Thank you. That's like the kindest compliment. It's hard because even as I'm talking and, you know, like having ADD can feel like a lazy eye, you know, like you have to discipline it. When I'm by myself, I'm just free and I can just let all the voices go, you know, but even here, it's like I start going on one trail, but I'm like, wait, I got to backtrack because of this. But there's so much flow when we talk like this that I just hope and believe that it's going to hit a facet for every person that's listening, even if it isn't as cohesive as I hope, that everybody's going to tap into even just a smidgen of it, you know, and the benefits of what you brought up, all of those points, like World War II, you know, even Nikola Tesla, you know, Russia has all of Nikola Tesla's stuff. So when you're talking about lightning and you're talking about, you know, going down and stuff like that, I mean, it's really important that we do understand the benefits of our nervous system, because that's what pagodas are designed after. If you look at poles, I'm actually going to do a video today for my education video. Tomorrow I'm going to stand under the electric poles so people understand what the 5G towers are, because they don't understand. Like, you need to understand electricity and what those circles are. And you know, I'll go to graveyards and even test the electromagnetic energy coming from the limestone, because they're being coded too. When you go into cemeteries now, man, just bathe in it, because see, all the bones are phosphorus.
I actually loved going and smoking weed in cemeteries when I was a teenager. Isn't that, like, it's so weird? Other people would like judge me for that. I really felt uncomfortable sharing that, but I loved the environment. I was like, there's so many stories here, so much truth that was yet to be told. You know, there's just a lot of energy.
Absolutely. So bones. So, you know, you go back to like...
Sorry, Lily, we're like, gotta cut for break. But please, I'm going to like take note here. Like, we're going to start bones in cemeteries.
I wasn't sure. I wanted to make sure before I went ahead. Thank you for the note.
Yeah. Okay, yes. Thank you so much. We'll have you right back here.
Okay.
Bye, love.
We are people advocating cannabis education here at paceradio.net.
Who has huge buds? You do. If you shop at BMA Hydroponics, attend one of BMA's educational seminars and learn the secrets of growing, harvesting, processing, and consuming quality cannabis and cannabis products. Learn how to make better extracts, edibles, and medicinal creams at prices you can afford. Visit BMA Hydroponics at 404 Maitland Drive, Belleville, or call 613-967-9888.
The only way to go.
Enjoy the buzz of legalization with Campbellford Lifestyle Shop. From lights to plant nutrients, books, consumption accessories, and more, we've got all your basics to grow or consume cannabis. Visit our info center or take a look at our piercing services and body jewelry, now available in-store through Campbellford Lifestyle Shop, 17 Bridge Street West, Campbellford.
Pace Radio is the people advocating cannabis education radio network.
Legacy 420 have an awesome array of cannabis-infused beverages, from pop to Nature's Nectar's teas, all in amazing flavors. What a selection! We even have a delicious mango-infused juice, and let me tell you, it's delicious.
Everything is infused in-house, so we buy our syrup from, you know, the same place where everybody else buys their syrup for their pop, and the infusion is done in the lab. It's all canned here, labeled here, produced 100% on Tyndonega.
We have two lines of drinks. One's called our Nature's Nectar, That was our original line that we came out with. And then we also have a line under the Red E brand. We have them in 10 milligrams, 30 milligram, and 60 milligram cans.
What a great selection for a get-together with friends or after a long day. Remember, if you want to wet your whistle with on-site lab-tested products, come see your trusted partner. Legacy 420 out on your road.
Did you know that the Pace Radio Network isn't just a radio network? That's right, because most, but not all of our programming is now done via video and is then podcasted at paceradio.net. So if you want to watch our programming, you'll find us on the Pace Radio Network's Facebook page, plus the show's own page, and you'll find us live on the network's YouTube channel. And don't forget, you can find it all, video and audio, at paceradio.net. You're listening to the Pace Radio Network, here at paceradio.net.
Welcome back. We've got Lily here. We were just talking about cemeteries and the phosphorus in bones. So I just wanted to pick up there because I'm really interested in this.
Yeah, so I do go all over the place. It's fun going on these adventures because they connect a lot of neat things that maybe you'd heard in the past but didn't really understand what it meant. And so I would hear traditions like in Jewish tradition and I think Native American, but don't quote me on that, and the reason why I say that is because in the Native American cemeteries, sometimes like at Cahokia, the heads and the hands would get cut off. So both of these religions believe that when they pass away, that the bones could raise back up. And there's a lot to that being said, a lot of crazy studies being done right now that they're actually taking bone and bringing it back to life just on a bone, activation from molecule being activated from like the solar flares right now. They've actually done it with egg yolk where they brought just a little smidgen, just got tapped into it, and they did this in a test and it brought life to be, which is so interesting when you think about creation. So phosphorus is the highest concentration of phosphorus is in bones. And that's why like bat guana is second, I believe. And that is bat feces. And that has a high concentration of phosphorus as well. And so the reason why that's so cool is because then when you start to understand some of the religion traditions, it's like, oh, it's more photon light activation. So when you activate that Luciferian effect, that green light effect, there's a dynamic to that. And so in graveyards, that is happening with all the bodies that are underneath, is all of that phosphorus is concentrated. Well, then now with the solar flares being hit like they are, and how in the daytime we're a different person than at the nighttime. So if you go to cemeteries at night, they're going to be a little bit scarier than what they normally feel like, potentially, because the frequency is changing. And so you might have to face different shadows that have evolved that maybe you hadn't faced before, so because fears are really just your own, because we're just an illusion anyway. Like Divergent, that's what we were talking about when you talked about Avatar. If I could also suggest Divergent and the Mad Max the Divergent, and it talks about being divided up. Oh my gosh, that movie like opened up everything for me after I watched that, just to mention that. But so the cemeteries, yeah, I'm actually going there for Thanksgiving. I'm going to an Indian cemetery. There's 2,000 bodies buried there in Illinois. And I'm going to go there because that's where I feel thankful. And the ley lines, I know you know this, but the ley lines at those cemeteries and where monuments are laid, they all represent a geometric shape, a sacred geometry shape, and they all represent a grid line that the earth follows that creates a lot more electricity. It's almost like we're like fish, but we don't really know that we're in water. You know what I mean? But the air around us is plasma, But we don't know because it's just the air around us, just like the fish don't know they're swimming around.
If you see birds too, like the birds that are in the Antarctic, if you watch them swim, like a penguin looks like an eagle or like something like underwater, and then the pelicans, they swim like bats. But it's so crazy. What they look like underwater is exactly what they look like in the sky. Other birds, not the same bird, but
yeah, but it's Hermes. It's as above, so below, and just like the currents in the ocean, we have the same currents in the air. In the ether, the codes in the air are the same codes that are in the water. That's why the ocean's hurting right now. It's all electrical. The whole ocean's electrical, and it's not doing all that well. So anyway, but yeah, it's just such a fancy dance. But when you can connect even just the one word Lucifer, just get past that one word, and it's like, oh, a Luciferian effect is actually freaking dynamic. Yeah, but you're too scared of the word. But if you type it, if you say Lucifer in your phone, it doesn't go down like hate or stupid, So the devil inside, isn't that an NXS song? I forgot. But, Yeah. So anyway, and then I couldn't get my frequency machine going. I broke it. So I'm going to send the video to you, but I do use these on mushrooms, and these are very affordable. I will send a link for this. This is about, I think it's like $20. You go to some other people and they'll charge you a lot more, and maybe you want the energy transference. It's up to you, but you don't have to. You just need aluminum. This is a weighted tuning fork. These were actually created in Egypt, where the cool spot of this is right in the middle. And what this is music note C. So music note C is the grounding music note. As we speak, we're actually speaking music notes because we're creating frequency. And so when you use a tuning fork on your body or on mushrooms, this actually helps to reprogram your water. So I always tell people before they shroom to use a tuning fork, and all you have to do is just hit it on this is music note C, and you're not going to be able to hear this like this, but basically this little hole right here is like a laser. And even though you can't necessarily hear it here, in my ear, it's creating a certain frequency that is now, I'll hit it again. This is what I do though. I go over my whole biofield. Because just like the Earth, we have to remember we have a biofield too. We're just like another planet, just on a micro level. We might not be Earth, but we do have our own world going on and our own brains, and we're contributing to Earth. But we have to clear ourselves. The Earth has a lot of pollutants, including people that are vampires. Like when we were talking about narcissists, they have a frequency. Once you get familiar with them, you can spot them in the dark. And so when you get around people like that, they're good to know that they're like that, and they're good to be around, because I always learn a whole ton from narcissists as long as you don't attach. Yeah. But then when I walk away, I'm always like, okay, here we go. And I'm Reiki trained, and in different, I studied different modalities, and I'm always like clearing myself because I take this serious. And so, this is really good to do to the mushrooms, because you have to remember that wherever you're getting your mushrooms from, they are being handled. They are being grown in soil. It's great if you can get mushrooms that are organic, possibly heirloom, or at least closest to it that the source, because, there's going to be people out there that are going to be touching that aren't good people. There's a dark side to psychedelics. Yeah. I mean, man, let me tell you, there's specifically. Yeah, so, it's just good to cleanse your stuff, like for real, because there's energy transference. Have you ever had somebody come to your house and after they left you, they almost still feel like they're still there? Well, that's the
Sometimes
phantom.
I feel it comes through the phone. I've had those experiences too, where I'm like cleansing and smudging the entire place. I'm like, all it was a phone call.
It's an eyeball. You know, all our phones are is one eyeball looking at me and one eyeball looking at you, but it actually happens to be 3 because depending on how many lenses you have. But again, it just comes back to what and how information's being stored. We're storing information everywhere, you know, so that's why coding is why I like learning coding, is because that helps me to then break it down simply, like with something like this. This is actually decoding. And that's all you really need to know. You don't need to know the hows or the whys. This is decoding. Now this is my plasma machine. And this right here is actually, I see it. So I try to look for loopholes for healing, because when my daughter was sick, I spent so much money that, you know, it was a lot. Now I'm just like, no. There's so many other things that you can do that you don't have to go that route. This is actually my oldest daughter is an esthetician, and this is actually an anti-wrinkle plasma machine. And then you can see it actually is electrocuting.
Oh, wow. Yeah.
Yeah, and that doesn't feel good, just so you know. That actually hurts. But women will put this on their face for, and it smells like ions. And what this is argon. And see, then you get used to the pain. But see, I have arthritis, right? Well, I'm being healed of it. But from putting caps on my bottles, from owning the brewery, I was a dummy, and I got swing top caps from Canada. I love Canada, but man, those swing tops kicked my butt. And I would put those on, but every time, so it was hurting my hand. So what I would do is I would put pine. I always treat with all trees. And I won't get into the kinesiology right now, but I do a lot of kinesiology with trees, and then I'll find what tree my body wants, and then I'll put the oil, and then I'll cauterize it. So I'll kind of like seal it right here, and like this hurts really bad, but after you keep going over it, the frequency that this is emitting is actually communicating with that wound. And as you get it, see, now I can't feel it at all because it just attuned it. And so when you look at gases as being a potential thing for healing, it's like I never really would have thought about gases for healing. I mean, not like this. Well, now you take Chinese medicine, and these are all things you can do even with shrooms, like prepping before shrooms, prepping your nervous system, prepping your heart points, because remember, experience is stored in the heart and the water. So if you can go this is where 9 heart points are, is in your forearm. You take a tool like this, and then instead of only thinking about using it for one thing, you can irrigate water with this. You can also go through your arm and go through it like a farmer, and just make lines going back and forth and then up and down. You're always in a weaving motion. And then you're sealing the deal with crisscrosses, and then it becomes squares.
Like St. Bridget's cross is actually much used for this time of year in the fall season, just as symbology of that. And so I just wanted to mention that as you're talking about the cross motion. It's really powerful for connection.
Powerful. You know what's so fascinating is on my gongs, I have, I might as well just show you. I'll just walk with you. So my gongs, I do electricity testing, and I'll check for electricity in different areas of the house. And I study sacred geometry and then those 32 original symbols. So I have this symbol right here. See that cross?
Yes.
Okay. And then this is my chow gong, but see how it's just a circle? I put my electricity tester on this one and this one, and the electricity bounced all over and followed these lines, but it wouldn't go outside of the circle. It stayed only within that circle. So that's telling you that shapes are a body. Even though we think so like, oh, a body can't be, no, like drawing a circle on a piece of paper. I even tested this. You draw a piece of paper, a circle, and then you put a Nazi symbol, or you do any of the sacred symbols, and you put the electricity tester to it. That's why the Reiki symbols, all those symbols are alive, is because they all have frequency attached to every single one. That's why they've lasted through the generations, you know, and they keep getting passed down. They even say that when the astronauts go to space, that the light reflection off of their shields actually shows those same 32 symbols.
Oh, wow.
Isn't that crazy? I mean, so it's quite fascinating. If, you know, we think past, you know, just the norm of just what shape potential is, but there's electricity in that. And that's why I guess I was kind of going down the road of when I was telling you I was going to do the video on the electricity post, is because a lot of people don't understand what we're being surrounded by. It's almost like an iron grid, you know, like Israel has an iron grid where missiles can't touch them, you know, it bounces off. See, Earth's atmosphere used to be like that. Asteroids used to come and it would bounce off of the atmosphere, but it's weak now. And so now 5G is infiltrating, and it's becoming like a ground level iron grid. We're getting locked into it, you know, and so that's why some of those things to understand the towers is important. And anyway, I could go on and on, but you know, it's just that if anything, if people were, I like to say the phrase, if you walk away learning anything, at least with the shapes, just know that the triangles are really important. If you see the 5G towers, you're going to notice they're all in triangles. There's a reason why. The triangles are really important. That's why Giza is designed the way it is, and why it actually goes below the Earth in the same exact shape. You know, so if you can understand triangles even by putting them under your own head, I even thought about, because I work a lot with, are you familiar with organite? With the different crystals? So organite is Wilhelm Reich. He is a physicist. And what this is, I make these, but not as cool. But I make them with my kids because I teach my kids physics. And they know about shrooms, so I teach them all about mushrooms as well. So this is organite, and Wilhelm Reich ended up getting mocked, just like Nikola Tesla. And I like representing the guys that were blackballed. And this is actually piezo energy, and this is what happens in our brain. And so there's a crystal that has a copper wire wrapped around it, but you could just do make a copper into a spiral. And then it's 50% organic material and then 50% inorganic material. You buy a mold at Michael's or whatever store you have there, a craft store, and then you get epoxy and you just weigh it. You just make sure that it's 50-50. And you don't have to have it put in any particular way, so to speak, just as long as it weighs out that much. But the pressure from the epoxy pushes down on it, and it actually creates energy. This is a little bit more of a fancier one. You see, you could put this on your heart. Like I just did this on a video today. You put this on your heart with the point sticking out right here. And all this energy, this acts like an antenna. And all the energy goes out of the square. All energy from a triangle gets pushed down. And that's why when you put it over your head, think about over our head as an iCloud, because all the information is being stored. So when we love, we're actually converting into our love into the universal language, which is numbers. Everybody speaks numbers. The air is the universal converter to that code. We all breathe air. So we all breathe numbers. And that's what we kind of forget, is every time we're exhaling, every time we're loving, every time we're sad, every time we're judging, it's coming out of our body. And so that's why Egypt has the circular parts, representation of the sun and creation, but also what do we create that's coming out of our head, the number system. So if we're in love, the number 528 is being created, and then that travels in the air. And then it's going to touch something, and then eventually it's supposed to touch the heart of the earth. And so iCloud is here and it stores the information of what it is we're thinking. So in some religions, they talk about how they know everything. They know the coming and going. They know every thought, everything. Well, that's partially because everything we're doing is being copied because our DNA is a crystal. And as we die, that crystal is going to be absorbed and the photon lights are going to escape and it's going to go to the next person, and then the cycle just starts all over, but not anymore. Things are changing. And so with that evolution process means that we're going to get our wings back. And so anyway, I kind of went on a little trail with that, but hopefully I completed that with closure. I don't know if I did. Where was I with that? Anyway, I don't know where I was totally going with it, but electricity, the pagodas, the rings around electric posts. You'll find it in everything now. Even George Washington, if you look at the dollar, his head's shaped like a mushroom. So many things in that. The electric post, what I was trying to say with that is that it represents our spine. So when you look at electricity and the rings and everything and pagodas in Japan, they talk about it in so many different ways. The pyramids, this is a beautiful one. The pyramids are coded. They're coded with so much information, but the way that they're designed is like a crescendo. So that's why the tips of trees, like everything comes to a point and then it comes down, comes to a point, everything's hills and valleys, just like music. And so where we're being coded is where I was going, is our DNA is crystals. And so we're trying to get to the crystalline form basically. And how we do that is by learning the dynamics of how we're coded. So I ended up going into binary coding, and this isn't for anybody else except that when you can understand binary coding going into what's ahead with AI transitioning, and when we were talking about Neuralink and stuff like that, if you can understand the enemy and understand now Nikola Tesla and these guys that died, the orgonite, that's where I was. Thank God. That was going to bother me. This is everything. So Sigmund Freud was a sex physicist, and he talked about sex, but see, everybody was calling it voodoo. But it's not. This is everything, because this is the same kind of free energy, and orgasm during sex is the same idea as free energy on a quantum level. So everybody's chasing free energy. And that's why his work is so important, is because if you can teach kids the simple things like this, like I upstairs made Christmas ornaments with these, and they're going to give them to their whole classroom. They go to a Christian school. If they knew really what they were being given, they'd flip out. Well, I'm not trying to infiltrate, because it's really just teaching truth, but it's just a science toy. That's all. But really, there's a lot more to it. I know how to compress the energy. And so now when it's hanging on a Christmas tree, guess what? It just circulated back to another pine tree. Isn't that funny? Pine is pine. So, but if you can start just with those little tricks by teaching people how to make even orgonite, making something like this, the unfancy one costs $20. And you can put it on your forehead, you can put it on your heart. You can do it during shrooms, and you'll get even that much more energy potential because of the pyramid and the piezo energy that's already happening on the inside of your body when you're shrooming. So there's that for that topic. I just see it's crazy because, the gate goes down and then I'm running. So I got to pull myself back now.
Well, thank you so much, Lily. Everything that you shared today is so insightful. I know you're doing some other work. You've been volunteering a lot on different mushroom farms because of your passion with mushrooms. I'd just like to finish off with a little bit more of what you're doing and how you're collecting this information, through personal experience.
So I did get involved with Boomer Shroomer with her first. she was the light that guided my path, really. And she was so kind, and you were so kind in retrieving me. And I want to applaud you for that because of the support that you give. When I first reached out to Boomer, I was also reaching out to some of the farmers in St. Louis. And I'm so thirsty to understand because, again, once I had my experience and I saw the things I saw, I was like, okay, how do I do this fast? I'm almost 50. I'm going to school full time. I'm a single mom. I just got divorced. I signed off everything. Like I don't take in anything, right? And then I dive into a category that's a category that like a lot of younger people are in. But see, I have an advantage because I was already in the brewery business, so I already have some foothold in with other categories as far as the science aspect goes. And so bringing that into some of these other farms here in St. Louis has been such a treat because it's a different feeling working with mushroom people because they're a lot more accepting. Whereas the kombucha world, it wasn't like that. It was a lot more cutthroat. And so being in this environment is almost weird at times because I'm like, oh, like you're cool and you're going to teach me, like that. It just feels so different. And so I'm learning a lot about shiitake, and I'm learning a lot about ferments again. Like they do a lot with mushrooms. Like we're going to be electrocuting them with the Nikola Tesla coil because that's sort of my jam. And hopefully get into the realm of teaching again. They already do teach, but I'm hoping to get my foot in the door eventually because electricity, like mushrooms, go hand in hand with that because of the nervous system. So if you think of lightning, think of a nervous system. It kind of acts like that when you see the fibers. It's like the nervous system is shaped like mycelium. They all work so similarly and they look a lot alike. So
very much like the mycelium under the ground too is very much like our brain and our nervous system. Yeah. I know in Mexico, lightning is a huge part of their religious and foraging routine of psychedelic mushrooms because it's the lightning itself that they believe helps just activate the mycelium to pump out the actual mushroom fruit bodies. When I mentioned before about the devil or that negative energy being in the lightning, it's not the lightning itself. The lightning itself would be one of those natural energies. It's the explosion from the lightning that is said to be the negative part, the destruction, right, that comes from it. But the lightning itself, very natural and very much energetic and very much that God energy that would help in these instances with mushrooms and why it's sacred. So thank you. Sorry, please go on.
No. And that's why I like this. That's actually what intrigued me with this was because Nikola Tesla, because I actually do build pyramids. I actually do things that he does because I'm like, well, I want to know. You take something like this to a mushroom, it just like activates it. It just brings it to life, and it almost makes it as if like it has its upgrade, by taking something like that to it. So that's why I show some of these tools like this one. When you're doing this, you're coating the mushroom with music note C when you ingest it. And people think, well, you can't see it, so how do you know it's there? Well, we're so cool now, like in the past year, especially with all of the science, like the quantum physics testing that they have capability now, that it's like they've got proof. I don't know. And that's the only thing actually that I'll talk about is the proof, because I don't have time to deal with skeptics. I need proof to line up with the Bible or to line up with Mesopotamia or Tao or Tao or Buddhism. I just need them to coincide so that I'm only working with it in that way, because we're already zipping through time, just we don't have time.
One of the benefits of psychedelics is that, meditation can very easily get you to the same sense of enlightenment as can yoga and many other modalities. But the truth is we just don't have time for that. So working with psychedelics can get you there a lot faster. And for some people, it only takes once. For others, this is our calling and we keep going back.
Yes, and I always like to say as well, it's like, it helps to incorporate the light. As we become adults, it's funny, I'll just go up and say, hey, what's your favorite color? And like, I don't know, I haven't been asked that in years, but why not? Why don't you know? Why don't you know who you are? I mean, it's such a simple question. Well, blue. Okay, well, let's talk about that. Let's talk about your chakra. Let's talk about the water and the association of like what you're talking about with the lightning crashing. That's ocean waves. When oceans wave crash, that same dynamic happens. It changes the ions of the air. And that's what creates more stimulation in our intelligence. So that's why when you're using something like this, it's creating more stimulation of intelligence in that thing that has the conscience. So when we were talking about bodies, like a circle, just creating this, I just created a body. Now, if there was something hanging from here, like a symbol, one of the sacred symbols, like that cross you were talking about, and we were to check the electricity, you would just see it bounce. So when we're electrocuting, specific bodies of things, it's creating a higher conscious awareness for that thing. Because everything's becoming alive now. We're like living in Toy Story and we don't even know it. We're getting there.
That's a great spot. We are running out of time here, but you've given us so much. I have a couple more questions for you and then we'll have to get off. And we got to do this. Because of the radio show and everything, we do have to really keep it time. So in as few words as possible, if I were to give you a dandelion to make a wish for the collective, for yourself, what would that be?
For everyone to wake up. It would be to be awoke. How do you say that? It's to have the awakening. That would be my wish. For sure.
It's all happening, girl. This wish is coming true. I'm feeling it too.
It is. It's amazing. I'm so stoked for the opportunity.
Yeah, thank you. Lastly, how can everybody contact you? I'm of course going to put a lot of stuff in the description below because I want people to access you and this information that you're sharing. I think is so important. But for anybody who's just driving or listening, how can they reach you? What's the best way?
So right now I decided to hold off on doing a website because the platforms are working great. So TikTok, Instagram, it's at the Lions Gypsy, and Lions with an S, Gypsy. And then Facebook, it's actually under my old brewery name. It won't let me change it. And I have a following on there that already knows that I transitioned over to psychedelics, but it's Blue, and that's KOM as in Mary, B as in boy, LU, kombucha. And that's find the Lions Gypsy. But I have a plant medicine line as well. So I do just like one-offs for that day because I zip through things. But I work with 2 botanists. And I also will show, different ways of being able to increase hormone for women that are a little bit older doing shrooms and different things like that. So you'll find a lot of different tips there.
Yeah. Oh my gosh. Thank you so much. I'm excited. I'm going to dive in myself too. And I think you and I are just, going to continue these kinds of conversations because there's so much growth potential here as more information is coming out, as more research is being done. You're really at the forefront of all of this. So I'm personally going to be staying in contact and would love to collaborate more in the future. And I'm grateful to have connected and to help you in sharing all of this. It's really is an honor, and I'm here to support you all along the way.
The opportunity and and following all the trails, as many as there were, like, you kept up well. And so I'm grateful for all of that and for all the listening ears. Very appreciative. I look forward to the collaborations and so many things yet to come. I mean, it'll be funny to see, instead of like the Avon ladies, will be like the Avion ladies. That's an alien race. You know, we'll be doing psilocybin, showing up at people's houses.
Yeah, I love that. I've had that same visual, believe it or not. Maybe it's the mushrooms coming through collectively, but yeah, I know that it's a little soon for that, but I do see it coming. I've straight up had that exact same vision. So.
Totally. Well, maybe that'll be it then, but we'll talk soon. Thank you so much again.
Thank you. Thank you. Yes. Bye for now.
Bye-bye.
Hey there! Welcome to this special lesson of AfterSkool. I am Jasper from the Fungi Academy, and today we will be learning about the wondrous world of intelligence. So, let's dive into it. So, what is intelligence? We as creatures with brains like to think that all intelligence derives from the brain. To be honest, our brains are pretty good, and we have reasons to be proud of them. I am, after all, expressing myself on a device and in a language ultimately created by our brains. Go brains, yeah. Unfortunately, our brains have a big issue. They limit ourselves from recognizing any other kind of intelligence. Calling someone small-brained will always be an insult. Here are some examples of organisms that are undeniably smart, yet do not have a brain. The moon jellyfish can age backwards, form hordes of clones, and regenerate lost body parts, all without a brain. Slime molds can survive as single-cellular organisms, yet like to hang out together. A very special slime mold, known as Fusarium polycephalum, can solve mazes, mimic and improve the layout of man-made transportation networks, and choose the healthiest food from a diverse menu. And all this without a brain or central nervous system. So, how do all these things happen? I don't know. I am just a simple creature with a brain. You don't even have to look around yourself. Look within. More and more research is showing that our state of mind and our mood is actually partially controlled by the microorganisms in our gut. It's called the gut-brain axis. Down in the gut, bacteria make over 90% of our neurotransmitter serotonin, which regulates our emotions. Wait, so you are telling me that my almighty brain is under the influence of tiny single-cellular organisms? Who orchestrates all of this? I don't know. I'm just a simple creature with a brain. Fungi, to me, are the best showcase of the unexplainable intelligence you find on this planet. You find them everywhere. All organisms depend on their actions. Even individual species can take up several independent roles in an ecosystem. Some fungi start a symbiotic relationship with a plant. That plant can become ill and might become a danger to the whole ecosystem. And suddenly, this symbiotic fungus starts acting more like a parasite. It kills the plant and eventually acts more like a saprophyte, breaking down the complex chemicals that have formed the plant's body into accessible nutrients for the next generation. There is some convincing evidence that all life on Earth derives from fungi. The first multicellular organism in the fossil record is a mycelium network. We know that fungi are capable of transforming solid rock into soil. We have yet to encounter a species of plant in the wild that doesn't form a symbiotic relationship with fungi. This is why I see fungi as the conductor of the orchestra of life. Like when trees evolved around 350 million years ago. The white rod, now recycling all the carbon that wood holds in its lignin, was not yet present. The trees would just get stacked on top of each other, keeping all the carbon they absorbed into the ground. This potentially led to a massive increase in oxygen levels. A high oxygen concentration in the atmosphere, over 30% compared to 21% today, allowed insects to grow to massive size. During these times, you had dragonflies the size of crows flying around. All because fungi were not yet able to break down the lignin that wood is composed of. As the conductor of the orchestra of life, fungi must be incredibly intelligent, even without brains. A species of cordyceps, Ophiocordyceps unilateralis, are some of my favorite examples of the intelligence of fungi. Somehow, this fungus germinates in the body of, let's say, an ant, and instead of colonizing the whole body of the victim, it apparently grows towards its central nervous system and somehow taps into it. Not only does it know where to find the central nervous system and how to tap into it, it also knows how to control the physical, moving body of an organism not even closely resembling their own. It controls the ant to walk to a high place above the colony, makes it hold as tight as possible to a branch or leaf before it fully colonizes the ant. Eventually, when the whole body of the ant is consumed by the mycelium, it grows its fruit, spreading its spores over the colony below. That an organism without a brain or central nervous system like we understand in animals can do this just blows my brain. An organism with a bottom-top intelligence we perceive to have a top-bottom intelligence. Our minds tend to think it's the singular decision-making entity within our body, meaning many independent cells making collective decisions. There are many examples that show that fungi are not only essential and abundant, but also conscious. Take the mushroom, the fruiting body of a group of fungi, a collective building effort from the mycelium built to spread spores and new genes around the world. It lives for a short time and tends to be consumed by the inhabitants of its environment. Look at the famous Amanita muscaria, the fly agaric. Not really pleasant to eat for us humans without proper preparation, but reindeer seem to have no issue consuming this mushroom. Or take the infamous death cap mushroom, Amanita phaladius, repeatedly used to poison political figures like Roman Emperor Claudius or Holy Roman Emperor Charles VI. Half a cap of this mushroom can kill a grown man, yet tiny slugs can eat several mushrooms without being their last meal. Okay, enough about the dangerous mushrooms. Let's talk about the mushrooms that we can consume and are good for us. Why would fungi like chaga, turkey tail, reishi, and I can keep going for a while, use up their vital energy to create compounds in its temporal fruiting body that have anti-carcinogenic effects in mammals? Is it struggling with cancer themselves? This seems very unlikely to me. Or lion's mane. This mushroom creates a compound that helps us
You're listening to the Pace Radio Network, here at paceradio.net.
The views expressed by the individuals during this broadcast are their own opinions, and they may not be the same as those of their group or other organizations they may be involved with.
BMA Hydroponics has everything you need to succeed. Visit our hydroponics superstore at 404 Maitland Drive in Belleville, and we'll show you how to grow your own quality cannabis for pennies per gram. We're open Mondays, Tuesdays, Wednesdays, and Saturdays from 10 a.m. to 5 p.m. and Thursdays and Fridays from 10 a.m. to 7 p.m. Call 613-967-9888. BMA Hydroponics. It's worth the drive.
The only way to go.
When you have a pain that's reached its peak, Legacy for 20, it's so unique. If organic cannabis is what you seek, here's your trusted partner 7 days a week. Suppository salves, vapes and drops, topicals, edibles, infused pop. Just when life seems like it ain't easy, at Legacy 420, enjoy a pop freezy. Lab tested products, make them the GOAT. Legacy 420 out on your road. Legacy 420 in Tyndonega Mohawk territory. Indigenous organic cannabis at its finest.
Did you know that the Pace Radio Network isn't just a radio network? That's right, because most, but not all of our programming is now done via video and is then podcasted at paceradio.net. So if you want to watch, yes, watch our programming, you'll find us on the Pace Radio Network's Facebook page, plus the show's own page, and you'll find us live on the network's YouTube channel. And don't forget, you can find it all, video and audio, at paceradio.net.
Enjoy the buzz of legalization with Campbellford Lifestyle Shop. From lights to plant nutrients, books, consumption accessories, and more, we've got all your basics to grow or consume cannabis. Visit our info center or take a look at our piercing services and body jewelry, now available in-store through Campbellford Lifestyle Shop, 17 Bridge Street West, Campbellford.
You're listening to the Pace Radio Network.